So it's back in the year of Trek. We're getting the second half of Star Trek Discovery Season 4. And it's got a lot to catch up on, because last time we seen the crew, Book had done a runner with Tarka in the spore drive, and they were off to stop what they thought was the enemy. Now, I'm sure you've seen it by now, but if you haven't, this will contain spoilers. So this is going to be my review of Star Trek Discovery episode All In. So yeah, I'd kind of forgot roughly where we were with Discovery. As I said, Book has taken the spore drive and done a runner with Tarka and left Michael in a bit of a bind. So this episode did have a lot to fill us up on, although I'm sure I said on my last episode review that I thought that the Book chase would be stretched over the season rather than resolved straight away, and this episode did have a few surprises in it, but I'll get to that in a second. So first of all, it's nice to see Vance back. The President really comes into her own in this episode, and we get a real sense of the power dynamic between these two, as he can't believe that Tarka's turned on him. And he sends Michael off on a sort of side mission on the side of the mission that the President wants her to do. So I suspect that this might have fallout between the dynamic between himself and the President going on in the season. We also learn that the spore drive is the best alternative warp drive technology that Starfleet's working on, and they've already mentioned a few at the end of the last season and start of this season, so I don't get why it's such a priority or why it was even so easy to take. But as you suspect, Michael defends Book using his grief, so she wants to go after them. And Book and Tarka do need some supplies before they can use the weapon. And when you do see Tarka, he's pretty chuffed that the spore drive integration worked. But they are fugitives from the law, and Book doesn't seem to care. They need a material called isolinium to make the weapon work, which apparently is very hard to come by. So they have to go to an old trading outpost, Book knows, and this is where Star Trek's been getting a lot of criticism for this recently. In fact, I think going back to Season 3, Episode 1, I mentioned this, and I've mentioned it in my Prodigy reviews as well. But the second that they go to the trading outpost, this episode just becomes Star Wars for me. It's all shady trades and aliens and dodgy deals, and Michael ends up there too with a Washington, and they even end up talking to the same guy. So I guess it is a pretty small universe in the way that Star Wars is as well, that the same characters keep popping up. I'm not going to talk about too much what happened in this episode, more about how I feel on it, and I have to say I think this is probably the worst episode of Discovery that they've ever made. For quite a few reasons. One, they draw out the story too much. Two, the stakes don't really feel like stakes. A good quantity of the Federation is at risk here, or in fact anywhere's at risk, because they don't know where the DMA is going to pop up next. And they decide to hang the entire story on a card game that no one takes seriously, and put in all these sort of little jokes and treat it a light-handed situation, which to me doesn't make sense. Michael's been sent there to find Book, but she doesn't need to find Book, she just needs to find his ship and take it from him, and yet they spend the entire episode, like I say, just bantering back and forth as if nothing really means nothing. And yeah, when they do meet up, like I say, she just tells him to stop instead of actually trying to stop him, and all they do is try and outbid each other, and then the episode turns into Fight Club with Washington. Now, people are saying it's good that we're getting to see more of the sort of back crew on screen, and it is, and I like Washington, but she doesn't get any development here. She's just literally the muscle. You know, a situation that, well, not Picard because he didn't really do it, but Sisko certainly brought Worf whenever he wanted to intimidate someone, because Worf is like a fucking huge intimidating guy, and it just felt like that's why Washington was here. She was just here for the fight. She was just the muscle. We didn't learn anything about her. Nothing happened to her that I think's really going to affect her in other episodes going forward. And I don't get why people are so happy about this, because this isn't character development. She was just used as a device, and she just becomes Tyler Durden, like I say, in some sort of Fight Club. And there is a lot of good things about this episode. We do get a changeling. I think it's good that we get to see them, but Again, this is the main issue with Discovery. Why are they showing us things and not explaining it? Like, it's just like the writers are throwing things on, going, see, this is Star Trek, we know what this is, we've read about it, but if we're not getting any expansion, or it's not adding to the story, or it's not affecting the plot or the characters, what's the point if they're just going to throw in all these Easter eggs? So yeah, I didn't understand why Michael didn't try and take Book's ship without this whole confrontation with Book, because it would have completely crippled his plans straight away. And when Michael does get back to the Federation, the President literally says the same. And it pisses me off that she isn't mad about this, just because Michael's placed a tracker on Book. Again, if she'd just taken his ship, or incapacitated him, or stunned him, or shot him, or even killed him, that would have been the plot over with. The stakes in this episode are so high and they're treated so lightly and frivolously, it's kind of shocking. And I'm not totally against Discovery. If you've watched my previous episodes, you know that I do enjoy it, and I certainly do enjoy aspects and characters in the show, but this just felt like really lazy writing. But getting back to the crew, once they've scanned the coordinates beyond the galactic barrier, they know that something's there, but they don't know what it is. There's a warp-capable species that are nearby and have some sort of connection to the Federation, so why didn't they just jump there to see themselves, instead of having to go on a side quest? And I've got a feeling that's what the rest of this season is going to be. It's going to be side quests leading to this, leading to that, back and forth, and there's not going to be any real development. And yeah, the reveals on Discovery from Season 2 onwards haven't been great, and I can't see how they're going to round off the reveal for Season 4. They've put so much up at stake, but again, we're not getting familiar with these Alpha Quadrant species that we know, and there's been a 1,000-year gap, so they should want to fill in the blanks. I really don't understand why Star Trek Discovery isn't exploring the lore it's creating, rather than trying to go for these season-long story arcs that, at the end of the day, don't really mean anything. While I'm not against a side quest, the entire Mandalorian Season 2 was that when you think about it. It just bothers me, and I would say I'm more disappointed than angry. Like, I'm not an angry Star Trek fan, I'd say I'm more a disappointed Star Trek fan. Yeah, the fate of the galaxy could be at stake, and the way that this episode handled it, in my opinion at least, wasn't great. It was trying to be playful and light when dealing with pretty dark subjects, and the tone didn't really fit in with the story. The whole galaxy's at stake and you have to stop a couple of guys, why would you play games? I don't mind Star Trek feeling more like Star Wars, but this felt just like a giant sidestep where the stakes are just forgotten, and this isn't even going to be mentioned again in future episodes, I think. There's something out there that could appear anywhere at any time and destroy entire planets, and the characters are just treating it like it's nothing at all. I mean, Book's grief even seems to have been forgotten in this episode, as it doesn't really get mentioned too much. But in its defence, the show does look great, and it is nice to see them out in new locations. They've just got to get a better handle on the writing, because Discovery has this really nasty habit, as I said, of not delivering on reveals. And I think when whatever the reveal is that the DMA is, because there's going to be something else beyond what they discover in this episode, it's going to get resolved with a big, massive speech. I think it's pretty safe to say at this stage already. Now, as you can tell, I really didn't like this episode, but I do like the show, so I'm going to stick with it. But let me know what you think of that episode in the comments below, or you can follow me on Twitter. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you have a different point of view entirely? I want to hear from you. So again, if you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be covering all the new Star Trek shows all year, as well as the ones that we've got going on at the moment. My name's Al, as always, thanks for watching.